Understanding the process is critical. We're going to walk through some key elements of M&A agreements, starting with the interplay between your financial statements and the definitive agreement. One of the primary areas of the contract, reps and warranties and related due diligence, is financial. Make sure the buyer understands how your books and records are maintained early in the due diligence process. If you are not using accrual accounting and doing GAAP revenue recognition, expect issues and delays. This is something you can be working on now, ahead of a deal. With respect to your balance sheet, understand that most deals are cash-free, debt-free, with a normalized level of working capital in the business. This means that the cash belongs to you, but also means that all debts need to be paid off. Buyer is not going to just assume your bank loans. Finally, if you are doing proper revenue recognition, you likely have deferred revenue on the balance sheet. Buyers will want to treat this as debt. You don't, as this is a reduction to purchase price, and the cost of servicing that future revenue is usually pretty small. Try to figure out what that cost is, and you'll be better off. Next, the all-important topic of the escrow holdback, the portion of the purchase price that gets set aside at close to satisfy future claims. This can be done either in the form of a third-party escrow or a holdback held by the buyer. The definitive agreement will set the percentage of the consideration withheld, generally 10 to 15% of the total deal value. The duration of the obligation, known as the survival period, usually 12 to 18 months, as well as a deductible or tipping basket provision that prevents buyer from bringing small claims against this fund. Next, as seller, you want a liability cap on the overall deal. Buyer, of course, wants you to have unlimited liability for everything. You want your general liability in the deal limited to the amount of the escrow or holdback. Of course, some liabilities, usually called fundamental representations, including ownership, tax, and fraud, cannot be capped. Another major issue in definitive agreements is the requirements around voting approval by the owners of the business. You may think that a bare majority can sell the business. This may be technically true, but is practically meaningless. Buyer will almost always demand a supermajority in order to close. Some buyers may even demand 100%. As a seller, this is crazy, because you are giving tiny shareholders the power to block the deal. You never want to go above 90% unless the company only has a couple of shareholders. Complications arise when sellers' customer agreements include a change of control or assignment clauses. Buyers will want signed consents from any customer with such a clause. These are tough to get. They take time and can open up the company to the customer renegotiating their own deal or extracting some other concession that you don't want to give. Look at your customer agreements and make sure anything done on your paper gives you the ability to assign the contract in a change of control. Now, disclosure schedules. The attachments or documents that come along with the contract always take longer than anticipated. These delays can kill a deal. So get in early and push the buyer for an early draft of the definitive agreement. That will give you a disclosure schedule roadmap. Then get resources allocated early and get those schedules done. Let's talk about earnouts. Earnouts are common contract components. They tie a payment to the sale of the part that the total transaction price to the company's future performance. In other words, the seller is required to hit financial targets, such as annual recurring revenue, ARR, or EBITDA, typically over 1 to 3 years. Often earnouts bridge gaps between the buyer and seller proposals for the total sale price. The earnout's key contractual terms for the seller include control of resources, attainable targets, and clear definitions of expectations. This can turn into a whole negotiation within the larger negotiation. And finally, the closing. Remember that signing the agreement doesn't mean the deal is closed. All the closing conditions need to be met before the closing occurs. For example, one of those third-party consents mentioned earlier may need to be obtained from a major customer. If these items are going to take more than a week, both parties may be better off delaying the signing until the conditions are met. Then the deal could sign and close simultaneously.